Okay, good morning. This is the CHCC Asset Management System training. So what I'd like to do is just start off by pointing out the URL. Now this is going to be customized training just for asset management. So if you're not actively involved in maintaining the inventory in your area, most likely this training doesn't pertain to you unless your manager has asked that you take the time to go over it. So we're just going to take note of the URL. In the initial training that we did in the first part, we went over some of the URLs for the systems. For this one, we're just going to log in using our computer ID. That's going to usually be our first name dot last name and password. Now for this one, for this example, I'm going to use a temp user account, okay, that I've given access. Okay, and as soon as I log in, my view is going to look very similar to what it's going to look like if I'm a standard user. Now, a standard user is going to be able to view all of the different assets and things that they've been assigned. But what comes in addition to being an inventory asset management person is I've given you special credentials based on what your management has requested. So that means that you'll be able to view these sections up here. So we've got, these are going to be for the actual assets up here. Okay, and this will let you view some of the assets, some of the things that you can do to filter. Now I want to take the time to point out that this small section up here, it says you can look up asset tag. But from what I've found, it's a lot better if you just find the area that you want to look in specifically and then use the small search button that's there. I've tried looking for some things up here in this main search window thinking that it would just overlook all of these areas, and I didn't get the results that I was looking for. If you experience different and it seems to work for you, then feel free to. For me, though, this just didn't work that well for me. So I stuck with using the search window that's in each specific area, okay? So that's where I'll be using it. So now what I've done is, now I'm sure in each of your areas you probably have some type of means of tracking your assets, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet. I don't know if you guys are writing it down in a booklet. However you may be doing it. This will really make things a lot easier for you because you'll be able to, for one, jump right in and notice that we've queried a lot of systems that are out there already automatically. So your systems, a lot of them may already be in here. So what you can do is just actually start looking for them. So I just picked Lenovo just as an example because I know that we have a lot of Lenovo systems. And you'll notice that there are quite a few options here. 139 rows, it's saying. We got pages and pages of Lenovo. Okay, and these are all unique items. One way, if it's been entered, you can track it by asset tag. In a lot of instances, if IT didn't receive the computer first, then the asset tag won't be there. What you can do is you can look on the item and check the serial number. And if you check the serial number in here, then you should be able to come up with something. Now, one thing that I'll do with the serial number is if I'm not finding exactly what I want and I'm trying to put it in exactly the way that it looks, like this one is S1N0, but I'm not real sure if I'm getting the full serial number because sometimes they look a little bit cryptic. It'll show like different sizes and different lengths. What I'll do is as long as I see the SN, which looks, you know, it's going to look something like this, or maybe it's going to look like S-N, something like that. As long as I see the SN together and I start seeing some numbers and letters next to it, then I'll just find something in the middle. Like, okay, over here we've got 4G26, okay? Now I know the 4G26 are things that I can actually use. So what I'll just start doing is typing in right in the middle of the serial, 2, 6, and then I'll see that slowly it refines the serial number down. Now, if I'm very certain of what the serial number is, and I'm very certain of what the asset tag is, and I've entered that information in here and I'm still not seeing anything, more than likely that asset isn't in the system. So that's the point in time when we're going to come here and go to create new. Now, before I move on to the create new, I just want to point out some of these fields that you can see. We've got the asset name. We've got the asset tag. This is going to be important. In a lot of instances, we don't want to track an item by its serial number if it has an asset tag, because the serial number a lot of times can leave a lot to interpretation. Like I was saying, sometimes I'll just jump into the middle of a serial number and start typing that into the search box because I don't necessarily know where the serial number begins. Or sometimes I'm not even sure where it ends. Sometimes the serial number ends and then it'll have 8 extra characters at the end. And somebody may enter that in the end and we're not entirely sure. So to try to remove all of that confusion, the asset tag is going to be great. So you're definitely going to want to make sure that you're putting the asset tags as you're entering these. That means that it should have absolutely gone through MSO. So if for some reason you've received your assets and they don't appear to be tagged, especially if they're a high dollar item, that should send off an alarm to you. That should let you know, oh, I better contact MSO and find out, why did these not get tagged? Did they accidentally get dropped off early? Whatever the case may be. Then the serial number, I may be making a bigger deal out of the serial number thing than is necessary, but I do want to emphasize that sometimes it can be confusing to make sure that you're getting the full serial number. And if anything, what we can do is we can review back to the itemized list that we get from the vendor. A lot of times they'll have the serial number listed there. A lot of times the serial number will be very clear when we look at the label and we can see where it is. Some of the things to consider also, if we're looking at older assets, sometimes those serial numbers on a sticker or something may be faded away, may be scratched off. Hopefully the asset tag is still in order. If not, and you really want to keep a detailed inventory, one thing that you can do is contact MSO and see if they have any record of it on hand. There's a lot of different things that we can try to do, and the more that you use the asset management, the more you're going to start getting familiar with what's going to work best for you. And you can always call either myself or Atemalu. We have a lot of experience working with asset management systems, and we'd be glad to help you guys out. Now over here for the model, we try to keep the same categories. So one thing that I've done is I've limited your guys' end and being able to enter some of these descriptions. And the reason that I was doing that is because I'd like to keep uniformity. Let's say we have a manufacturer. One person enters manufacturer with the acronym HP. The next person puts Hewlett-Packard. The next person puts Hewlett-Packard. There's a lot of different ways that somebody could be saying Hewlett-Packard. So to try to kind of minimize that, what I've done is I've locked some of those fields so that, even for models, so that they can't be entered by the standard admin who's doing the asset management. This is where we need to work together. I need you guys to let me know, hey, I tried entering my asset, but I can't see the model there, or I can't see the manufacturer there. Could you please add that manually on your end? I'll check it out, and if I find it, I'll say, oh, that's because it is here, but the description may not have made sense to you. Or if we just don't have the model or the manufacturer there, then we'll add that for you, and then you can add that to the asset. Category, this one's pretty straightforward. We got printers, computers, laptops. We know these. This status, so for a lot of these, ready to deploy, in the instance here where we have all of these assets already entered for you, ready to deploy just means it's already entered into the system, but it hasn't necessarily been claimed by somebody. Now, whether that claim means hasn't been assigned to the proper department, or hasn't been assigned to the proper individual yet, or it's something that's already been assigned, but it hasn't been organized yet. And that's why we're giving these permissions to each of your areas so that you're able to kind of loop in all of your equipment and send it out. This, for example, is one that's already been deployed. So it's ready to deploy. The asset is still good, but it has been deployed and it's been given to Rhoda. Okay? So then we can see, depending on how much information we've actually pulled in on the asset, we can see what the value of it is, etc. As we're getting new equipment, we'll be entering these things into the system, and hopefully we'll have a lot of detailed information on this so that when we're generating reports, we have as much information as possible and we can really know the kind of equipment that we're moving around. Over here in the check-in, check-out, it's really just that easy. So if this asset here, this Epson impact printer just happens to be yours and you've identified it, let's go ahead and check it out. So let's do that. Let's see what happens. So here we go. A lot of times an Epson printer is not going to be assigned to an individual. It's going to be assigned to a specific area. So what you can do is you could say, okay, it's been assigned to, let's say, Rose. She wants her own. So we'll look in here for Rose and we see there's Rose. But in this instance, she's not getting that printer. So what we'll do is we will say, okay, it's been assigned to a specific computer. So then we'll say, okay, well, I've got this Lenovo desktop where they were hooking this printer directly up to. So then what I can do is come in here. If I find my asset, I can select that. Now I know that that printer has been assigned to that specific computer. But a lot of times with these, with these Epson impact printers, they're going to be assigned to locations. So let's say on Seaside, we're working to expand the area. We're adding another impact printer. So we're going to take it over to the Seaside. We can actually assign that to the location, and then we already know where it's at. And then from there, we can select the checkout date. This one's not, we don't know the date that it's probably not going to be checked in until it checks in. It's going to spend the rest of its life there, more than likely. What you can do is leave a small note. I personally, when it comes to data, I love detail. So leaving as much detail as possible for me is always a good thing, but really that's up to you. Now, if you've decided this is where it goes, you hit checkout, and then it's going to be assigned to that location, and that's really it. And that location can also mean, let's say I'm at BEH. I'm not really assigning this a desktop computer, for example. I'm not really assigning the desktop computer to an individual at BEH. It's just available for anyone to sit at and use. So then instead of assigning it to one person, I'll just assign it to BEH, and then I can be more detailed and I can say BEH main office front counter, something like that. But we want to try to limit how many different types of areas. And if you have more than one person who's managing your asset management, we want to make sure that you guys are all on the same page when it comes to what your descriptions are going to be. My initial idea when it came to locations was to lock everyone out of it completely. But then I thought maybe that's something that I should open up. But these are the types of examples. Atemalu's actually answered some of these already. So we've got public health, so we know it's directly across from our office. And then it gets more specific and says it's with FEP. HVSO, this is just that acronym spelled out. I most likely wouldn't have done that, but that's what I mean about the types of descriptions. We want to make sure that when we have a description, that it's something that everyone agrees on. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. This is just, we may have this, and then we may have somebody else set up a location that says HVSO, and then we may have another one say HVSO front counter, HVSO back office, etc. So I'm sure you can get the impression of what I'm saying. So over here, we have the ability to duplicate an asset. So if it's everything is exactly the way, let's say I've ordered 5 of these, or let's look for something new. Let's just see what we've got in terms of HPs. So let's say I'm looking in here and I've ordered oops. First try to find something that makes more sense. Okay, these M477. Let's say I've ordered 5 of these, okay? And they all have the exact same stats. They all came in the same purchase order. I mean, they all are in the same bulk, everything. The serial numbers are very close together because they all came together. What you can do is just clone that asset and then just change the minor details. So you don't have to retype everything. Just update whatever numbers in the asset tag, update the serial number to reflect whatever minor changes there may have been made, etc. And then the delete, for the most part, for the user level, this is going to be disabled. You guys are not going to be able to delete the assets or delete users or do any of those types of things. However, if you notice that there's some type of a discrepancy or something is duplicated and only one of them is a valid entry and the other one is just a trash duplicate, I tried to personally manually go through and eliminate all of those, but human error, I could have missed some. So just let me know and then I'll go in and delete it. And I will also be extremely thankful that you let me know because I try to keep the data as clean as possible. Another thing that we can do, we can export the assets. But the first thing that we'll want to do before we try exporting any assets, of course, is assigning what belongs to our area. So one thing when I spoke with Wilbert, he had asked, am I going to see all of the assets or am I only going to see what's been assigned in my area? Unfortunately, you'll have to see all of the assets. And the reason why is because we don't have much assigned to the specific areas. This is everything that we have. And so one of your first tasks is going to be first finding your people, taking ownership of your people, and I'll show you that in just a moment. And then next thing you're going to do is find your assets and taking ownership of your assets and assigning that to the individuals so that when they sign in as a standard user, they can see what they've been assigned. Or if they haven't been assigned anything, well, they can see that too. So let's go ahead and start off with that. So the first thing we're going to want to make sure is if I come down here to the settings, this little gear icon, and I come down to departments, I want to make sure that my department is there. So for me, health information technology, I'm there. My manager, Boston, he's already been assigned here. 15 users, that's all of us. And of course, this information is accurate because I know all of those. Some of these other ones I don't know, but what I did was I took the time for some of these to try to organize it so that it was in a way that made sense and also kind of took some of that work out from you guys needing to worry about it, like CQPM. I went ahead and entered Alina and all of the people that are in the CQPM office, and that's their location. Radiology, I just added Dan. I don't know who else is in there. I did some of these things just to try to help get it started. And then Wilbert, I just spoke with him the other day. He'll start pulling in some of his people when he's ready. Amber, NCDB, CORAD, MSO, so on and so forth. You can see here, Hemo, FEP, WIC, okay? And then they've pulled in some of their people already, probably not all. I know Dr. Savino has more than just one person. More than likely this has been Remy who's been added. But this is just an idea. If you don't see that you're in there, like maybe CGC, for example, I don't see them here. So what I'll go ahead and do for this example, for this training, is I'll go ahead and enter them. So I will put CGC. And this is a very large area that covers a lot of different physical space. So they're going to have a lot of locations. So we'll have CGC as one umbrella, but then we'll be able to split them up into different locations. And so let me see. There we go, Reina for the manager. And for location, I'm going to leave this alone for now because we don't know what she would like for the main location. And I'll leave that at her discretion. I don't want to make that decision for her. So I'll create that. And now when you come down, you'll see on the second page here, CGC, Reina. And then she can start pulling in all of her people. And then she can check the gears and start adding some of those locations. What I would most likely do is put CGC hyphen whatever the location is, whatever is the description that works best for them, that all of their asset managers for their different areas agree on. And that's going to be up to them. And for any of these things, if you guys would like any type of advice or guidance, I'd be more than happy to help out with it. But for the most part, I've already met with a lot of you who are going to be doing this, and I know that you're very capable. I know Jesse Saban, for example, he really knows his stuff. I don't need to worry about Jerome Ballesteros with MCHB. These guys have worked with data. They really know what they're doing. And you can also, like I say, definitely reach out to me, and I'll be more than happy to help. So once you have your department set up, you have your location set up, we will then move on to the people. So this is where you want to go in and start finding some of your people. So for IT, if I was just entering and I was looking for some of my people, I may just think geographically around my space. Who's next to me? Well, Efren sits right next to me, so I'm going to look for Efren, and I'm going to make sure that his information is filled out here. So what that would look like, all of this would be blank initially. So I'll just select Efren, and then once I'm in Efren's area, I'm going to go to Edit User, and then I'm going to run down the list, and I'm just going to start pulling the company. I'm going to make sure his email's accurate. I'm going to pick who his manager is. And yes, even though you've already selected in departments, you're going to need to do this again. Health Information Technology for department, location. If you already have your physical location set up, you can go ahead and do that. All these other things, it's really up to you. I know for Wilbert, I really filled in country, state, city. I entered all of that information. But again, that's at your discretion. I try to be as detailed as possible, but you know, sometimes you really just won't need some of those details. Once you have all of your people set, what you can do is start looking for your assets. So I'm going to come in here to one that I already know has some assets assigned, and that's myself. Okay. Now when I type in my name, this could actually be deleted. So I got to see why this is showing that an asset is still assigned to me. So this may be important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over this process. I'm actually glad that this is like this. In the early stages of this system, somebody set this up and it's wrong. This has never been. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out what asset is this that I've been assigned. I'm going to remove it from this user and I'm going to add it to this user. So I'm going to go in here and find this. Let me see. I've been assigned an asset and I want to, oops, I got ahead of myself. Okay. I can go into assets to view and it says Precision 3530 with this asset tag. So this is what I want to remember. I don't need to remember any of this other stuff because remember, like I said, this is really one of our best identifiers. That's why we want to make sure that it's in there. So I'm going to go ahead and check this in because there's no need for it to be there. I'm going to check it in and now it's back in the mix of everything. It's just a free floating asset right now. So then I'm going to go back to people. Okay, my name is here and you'll notice that there's no name associated. I cannot delete the user. I will do that in a little bit though. I cannot delete this user because I don't have that access level. But what I can do is I can come in here and I can edit my user. Actually, again, I jumped the gun. I don't want to edit the user. I want to open his profile. So I'm going to open my profile, go into assets, and then I want to check out an asset. So I'm going to come up here to actions. Where is it? Okay. Let's just do this the easy way. We're going to list all the assets. List all. And I'm going to plug in that tag number, and it should be the only one that pops up over here. Okay, now that I pulled up this asset, I'm going to check it out. And I'm going to select my name. And I want to make sure that it's not this imposter, because I don't know who's this guy. I'm going to select my name here. And for accuracy, I would love to have the date, but I don't know what it was. It was like 8 months ago. So I'm just going to leave this blank. And notes, I'll just put... So this is the one that I use. This is actually the one that I'm doing this video on right now. So I'm going to check this asset out. And then you should see my total count back on people go up to 7. Yeah, there's 6 and then 1. So that's 7 total. And then I will delete this one later. So that's really it for the users and for the assets. You can notice that when you look here, you can see everyone, but you're only going to be interested in the ones that are going to be your own. And that's when you can start typing in some of those names here and start finding them. If they're not in here and you feel that they should be, CHCC is actually a perfect example. CHCC was separate from our network for a very long time. It's only recently that we started adding accounts for them. So if you notice that somebody that you're expecting to be there is not there, please let us know, because that will help us to also populate the Active Directory, which is how we keep track of all the users. And the benefit to that is if we have an Active Directory account set up for the users, that means that they also have an account where they can access our help desk system and everything else. So those things are important. Some of the other things that we have here, just to go over quickly, the same general concepts that I showed you for everything else applies to these other fields. They're just different types of items. So serial numbers. Let's say you order, I'll use CHCC, I'll pick on them again. You ordered 3 copies of Adobe Acrobat Professional, and they're quite expensive. So it's considered a high dollar item. We're going to want to take those licenses for those items, and we want to assign them to the individuals that they're going to. So we capture the product key, we assign that to the individual, and then that way, we do that by checking it out. Then you'll notice that the count will drop 0 available of 1 or of the 3. So you got 3 separate licenses. You could bring them all in at once, like this one. If you assign one of those licenses out, then you have 1 of 2 available. You assign the second one out, you have 0 of 2 available. And then what you can do is you can move that between your department. If for some reason somebody else moves into another role, then you can just have somebody else fill in that role, and then they become the one who's the user of that license for that particular software. Down here for the accessories, accessories are going to be low dollar items. At first, I didn't even have accessories and licenses set up for the different departments. I figured we'd go ahead and manage that at our level, but I'm going to go ahead and open that, because that way you guys can really manage where everything is going. And if you do have something like this one has webcam, if you ordered, say, 3 for your department, I'm Hemo, and I've decided that, you know, we are doing so many Zoom conferences that we'd like to purchase a few cameras that we can check out the different people in our area. But as they check them out, we want to keep track of that. So what we can do from day to day is just check it out. You've got it. And that way, when the individual logs in to their inventory, they can see, okay, I've been assigned a laptop. I've been assigned a keyboard and a mouse. Those are things that are not going to change. But I've also been assigned this webcam and this projector. Ah, that's right. I need to give back the webcam and projector. The webcam goes back to, say, Miles in Hemo or somebody. And then when you check in the projector, maybe you borrowed that from Matemalu in IT. So then you can just make sure to check those things back in. So that way we can really keep track of everything that's going in and out. Here for the consumables, I also had this one closed off, but I think this one could be useful. So if you're purchasing your own toners in your area, you'll notice here we'll have, say, 71. As each one gets used, they may get checked out, and then the numbers will start going down. We can get a general idea of the different departments that are receiving the toners, and you can get an idea exactly what it is that you're using. From looking at this, it looks like it has not been kept up on the system, but it has been kept up on paper. Right now, of course, with the COVID situation and being short on staff and being extra responsibilities all around, I'm sure everybody can relate. We're not managing each and every toner and ribbon that's going out of the office in the system. We are managing it on paper. So that'll be transferred over once we have our staffing and our situation under control. But this will give us the opportunity at a later date to be able to say, okay, say for fiscal year 2019, admissions was using this much toner, this much ribbons. And that'll give you, kind of an idea of how to prepare for the next fiscal year for just how many you may need. Okay, this import option, I will recommend that if you do have your own inventory, that most likely we should go through and cross-reference manually, because I've entered all of these assets that are in here manually, and that is just from querying the systems on their own. Basically, if you were plugged into our network, I should have some type of information on your computers here. If not, then it would be best if we just go through one at a time and just double check and see to make sure that everything is entered accurately. And that's just for the integrity of the data. The reports here, we can visit this at another time. For right now, I'm not 100% sure how everything on here is going to look. So what I would recommend is, if it comes to a time when you'd like to run a report on some of these things, let me know. Let's work together, and then we'll compile that report. A lot of this is going to be the same as any other type of system. So I'm confident that we can get those reports generated without too much issue. Really, that's it for the asset management system. The best way that I can suggest for everyone to really learn this system is to go ahead, get in, start using it, start looking up some of your assets, start kind of playing around with it. The easiest task, setting up your department, roping in all your people, and then third, going through and start finding some of your assets. If you don't see your assets, start creating some of those assets. Start assigning some of those assets to people. After you do 2 or 3, you're already going to be on your way. You're going to see exactly what it takes to get this done. And really, that's it. If you guys have any questions, you know where to call me, how to contact me, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.